To the Ram Camp van conversion project. Most of the hard work's finished except for the body work and painting, so this is where the project gets more enjoyable when you start to see the results of your work. In this episode, we will fabricate some cabinets, install our countertop and sink, install the bed, the driver and passenger seats, some shelves, a small table, and our cab carpet. But first I need to wrap up our plumbing and install some airbags on the rear axle.
Now we are prepared for any camping scenario as far as the electrical power goes. For our water system, we wanted a sink, an outside shower, a small freshwater tank with a 12-volt water pump, a water heater, and a gray water tank to store wastewater until we can properly dispose of it. This is how we did the plumbing in the van.
The plan is to mock the plumbing system up and verify there is room for it at the back of the van. After everything is positioned and checks out, I can start plumbing. I'm using a barb fitting at the bottom of the freshwater tank to route to the water pump. It is recommended you use a flexible hose due to vibration. I will cut the hose to length and clamp the fittings after the pump is mounted. Coming out of the water pump, I need a cold water line to go to our 12-volt water heater, but first I need to install the safety pressure relief valve. It has a small drain hose that needs to be routed outside in the event the relief valve opens and water pressure is released. Now I can connect the cold water line going into the water heater and the water line coming out of the water heater. The hot water will go to the sink and the outside shower. I used a T-fitting for cold water to go to the sink and the outside shower. Most water heaters used in RVs operate on LP gas, and some use LP gas in 120 volts. I didn't want a conventional water heater for a couple of reasons. One is we do not have propane in the van except for a small propane stove. And two is I didn't want to be dependent on 120 volt electricity. So we found this small water heater that operates on 12 volts. It's easy to mount and connect to the water system. It holds about 1.6 gallons of water, so it's enough hot water for a quick shower. Now we have hot water whenever we need it. I am mounting the outside shower to the floor where it will be easy to access and use. Now I can make my cold and hot connections at the shower. I will make the connections at the sink after we install the countertop and the sink. I already installed a water pump switch above the sink. Now I'm going to wire a second switch at the back of the van so it's easy to use with the outside shower. Now I can use a hole saw to drill a hole in the fresh water tank for our inlet and drain. Try to get as much of the plastic residue out of the tank so you don't have problems with the water pump later. With the fittings installed in the tank, I am mounting it so it won't move when we're traveling. Water weighs 8.3 pounds per gallon, so if our 15-gallon tank is full, it would weigh 120 pounds. While we're at it, I will secure the lithium battery for moving too. Next, I need to plan on how to mount the freshwater fill. You need a fill hose and a vent hose and a water fill inlet. Both connections are at the top of the tank. I am going to use a piece of Luan paneling and a 1x2. I cut the opening out, installed the inlet, and connected my fill and vent hoses. Now I can mount the water pump and the water heater and connect my water inlet to the pump. I used a drain valve with the hose connected to it as an easy way to drain the water tank. The only thing left to do right now is plumb the drain for the gray water tank. I had lots of RV sewer drain fittings and valves at my shop, but nothing specifically for a single gray tank drain. So I'm going to take this 3-inch drain, cap off the 2 1/4-inch outlet, and use it as the drain for the gray tank.
Now when the gray tank is full, we can connect a sewer drain hose and empty the tank at any waste disposal site or campground.
Okay, our plumbing's finished so we can check for leaks and test the system. I'm going to start by adding probably about a gallon of water to our freshwater holding tank. And then we'll turn the pump on, check all the lines for any leaks, test the sink, the outside shower. Okay, we have water in the freshwater holding tank, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn our pump on, and what will happen is we'll get water from the freshwater tank, will come into the water heater, fill it up, and then go out. It'll also go up to the sink. Water fills up the water heater and starts to come out. It will go up to the sink and it'll also come over here to our outside shower. So let's keep our fingers crossed and hope there's no leaks. Here it comes. The pump is on, it built up pressure, and we can check and make sure everything works. There's our hot and cold out of the shower. Still has a little bit of air in the system because it's probably still filling the water heater. Alright, so that tells me the water heater's full. I'm going to go ahead and turn the heat on and give that a chance to heat up. I'll put it right between low and high and we'll give that a few minutes to heat up. Let's check the kitchen sink. Okay, I have hot water. It's only been, I don't know, maybe 15 minutes. I'm not sure how long it would take to completely heat the tank up, but I do have hot water right now. I wanted to distribute the weight in the rear of the van as evenly as possible over the rear axle, so I put our monster lithium battery, the powered cooler, which will be full of food and drinks, and a fresh water tank above the rear axle. Speaking of the cooler, it's a Dometic CFX 335 powered cooler that refrigerates and freezes. It's great looking and built for tough use. There's an app that lets you control the CFX3 right at your fingertips, and it's sitting on a Dometic slide made for the cooler. The slide tray gives us easy access from inside the van. The rear axle is rated for 3,320 pounds. To help support some of the weight in the van and for a better ride, I decided to add 5,000-pound airbags on the rear axle. The installation is not that difficult. The worst part was removing the old bump stops. Then you position the airbags, drill a couple holes in the frame, bolt it down, and attach it to the axle. I am running the air line to fill the bags up to the rear of the van for easy access to check and fill the airbags. When I was installing the airbags, I took the rear brake drums off and noticed one of the wheel cylinders was leaking, so I replaced the wheel cylinder and brake shoes. I had some 1-inch square tubing at the shop, so that is what our cabinets will be made of. I am making one cabinet for our sink and microwave with the nice quartz countertop, and a second cabinet that the TV will mount on, and it will house the Dometic 970 portable toilet. Okay, I have the base of my cabinet mocked up. Now it's time to start welding. I measured to determine the size of both cabinets and started cutting, welding, and grinding the square tubing. The design just happened as I continue to cut and weld the tubing. I test fit the cabinet periodically. My plan was to make it big enough for our sink but minimize the footprint in the van. I finished the sink cabinet and started on the TV cabinet. This cabinet needs to be mounted out towards the side door so our powered cooler can slide out from under the bed. After more cutting, welding, and grinding, it wasn't long before the TV cabinet took shape. Next, I needed to sand the metal cabinets to remove any oil, dirt, and debris and get them in primer so they're ready to paint. I wanted to paint the cabinet frames the same color as the van, so I figured I would paint the front of the van while it was still apart too. And while I'm at it, I restored the old steering wheel and I'll paint that as well. We wanted to add a nice countertop, so we went to look at some remnants. Dawn found a piece of quartz she really liked, so we gave them the dimensions of the cabinet and they cut the quartz to match the cabinet and fit our sink.
I was concerned about the weight of the quartz countertop, but when they told us it weighed about 25 pounds per square foot, it's less than having another person in the van.
To install the counter, I used a construction-grade adhesive that works on metal and quartz. We marked the location where we wanted the counter and positioned it on the frame. We'll let that cure overnight. Today the plan is to get the sink installed and plumb the drain. Then I want to install the TV cabinet, both front seats, some shelves, a small table up front, and maybe the new front carpet. The plan was to use a curtain to cover the sink and drain below the countertop, but I thought it would be a great spot to add a small fold-down table. To fit our farmhouse theme, I found an old enamel top table small enough to work. I removed the top from the table and installed it in the van using hinges. Then I modified an adjustable leg to work on the table. Next, we installed the microwave, the TV mount, the 12-volt, 120-volt TV by RecPro, and inside the cabinet is our Dometic 5-gallon 970 portable toilet. I put a door on the front of the cabinet so you can remove the toilet to empty it at a disposal station. We found our front seats out of a Sprinter van, which is a big improvement over the original seats. These move forward and backward, recline, and swivel 360 degrees. I took a dinette table base and leg I had at the shop and used our old wood for a top. I used the same old wood on the TV cabinet.
We ordered the front carpet a while ago, and at the time we thought the seats would be beige or tan, but the interior ended up being black and gray. But I think the floor and the old wood on the TV cabinet and the tabletop will pull this color out.
The old door panels were tan with gold carpet. A while back I cleaned them, prepped them for paint, and I changed the color to black to match the black on the dashboard. Speaking of the dashboard, I installed a backup camera with the monitor mounted on the dash and connected it to a switch on this panel. Now we can turn it on or off whenever we want. It will help provide security too if we ever hear suspicious noises outside the van. I also connected these dash fans to the switches, and you can adjust the speed of the fan from inside the glove box. Then I added this stereo from RecPro and installed 5x8 Polk speakers in the doors. With everything finished under the bed, it was time to install the platform for the bed. I'm using 1.5-inch square tubing to support the platform. I need to have access to everything under the bed, and the simplest way I could think to do it was using piano-type hinges on the plywood platform. Now, when I need to, I can access or check something from either end. When it was finished, Dawn painted it to match our interior. I also added a section of plywood at the rear of the van that serves as a fold-up counter when we need additional space outside. I covered it with a piece of RV rubber roofing I had laying around.
Some other interior upgrades we made are the fold-down shelves on 2 of the doors like this one, the storage nets to hold and secure odds and ends, the kitchen shelf, the mirror, an LP gas and carbon monoxide detector.
I restore old cars and trucks, and whenever I need weather stripping or other rubber products, I go to Steel Rubber. They carry lots of rubber products for RVs too. I needed a driver and passenger door weather stripping for the van, and they had it in stock. This weather stripping has push pins that match the holes around the door, so it's easy to install. I'm adding some weather stripping adhesive between the push pins for an even better seal. I already removed the old seals, cleaned the surface, and painted the door jamb. Alright, the first thing you'll notice is these seals are labeled. So this is for the right door, of course the other one's for the left door. You always want your seals to end at the bottom, and if you'll notice on this seal, these two push pins are facing up, and then these are facing in. So there's two holes underneath here for these two pins, and then you just start working your way up the door. What I find amazing about these seals that Steel Rubber made is this is a 1978 van, and these pins are absolutely identical to the door. You'll notice the last pin I put in was right here, and then it skips this section so you can see there's no pins, and then it starts again right there. Now the secret to doing this is typically, if you didn't have push pins, you would put a small bead of adhesive on the rubber, and you would put a small bead of adhesive on the door, and then you can kind of smear that small bead evenly across the surface, and you let that sit until it gets real tacky. And when it gets tacky, then you go ahead and adhere it. Now, because we have the push pins, I'm just using a little bit of adhesive on the seal as some extra insurance for a good seal. Well, that finishes episode 5, and you don't want to miss episode 6. In the next episode, I fabricate a rear bumper that a rear cargo tray mounts to. I fabricate a front winch bumper, steps, a running board, wheels and tires, and we paint the van.
Until then, happy camping!